All right, thanks everybody for joining us. So, want to talk about two things today. Both are pretty important changes across the MLS landscape. First, of course, is the schedule change that will take place in 2027, so that's a league-wide change. And then we have the Apple and MLS partnership update that will begin to change in 2026. So, as a starting point, as it relates to the schedule change, this will be the first time in the history of the league that we'll be running in the same rhythm as the rest of the top leagues in the world. I think this is something that a lot of soccer fans in the United States and around North America have been curious and hopeful for, and this represents that opportunity to align with what is being operated as a calendar for most of the leagues throughout the world. This is also a great opportunity for us to begin positioning our playoffs in what is the most optimal time of the year, optimal in terms of weather for both fans, for our players. It's also optimal in terms of having the right landscape for optimizing our TV audience. Certainly having competition against the NFL and college football in the fall and winter is formidable for anyone, and that's something that we're looking to optimize. We're looking to no longer be bound by some of the restrictions associated with having games taking place during FIFA windows. So when gone are the days, starting in 2027, gone are the days of having players lost to international duty while we're playing critical league games. And as you ask the sporting departments across the league, you'll find that this is a welcome change as we can optimize our roster construction. So imagine building out a roster where in the most important transfer window, the summer window, the most active transfer window, the summer window, you can be building a roster for the full season as opposed to half of the season. So from a player recruitment perspective, from a player efficiency acquisition perspective, it's optimized. And from a calendar point of view, I think maybe what's been lost in all of this is that 91% of the dates between the regular season dates and the playoff dates, 91% of those dates will be similar in the new structure. And so what that means is there's 91% continuity, and I'd argue 9% improvement, certainly beneficial to those of us here in Austin. So with that said, that's kind of the schedule overview. And then as it relates to Apple, this is really simple. This is change that allows fans who have a subscription to Apple TV to have access to 100% of Austin FC's matches in the regular season, the playoffs, and in Leagues Cup. You do not have to subscribe to MLS Season Pass, just have to subscribe to Apple TV. And if you are a season ticket member of Austin FC or anybody in the league, you have access to Apple TV now. And it's not just MLS matches, it's everything that's on Apple TV. So that's it's sports content, which is F1. Now it is Major League Baseball package that they have, of course, MLS, and then everything in entertainment that they have, movies, shows that will also be part of your subscription. So that will begin in 2026. All right. I'll open it up to questions. Yeah, Jim, I saw your hand first.
Okay. Do I need to wait for this mic?
Oh, sorry, Jim.
I guess, MLS over a couple of over a couple of decades basically laid its roots with the schedule that it had. I mean, and it's been successful to the point you've been able to expand many times over. So what's the catalyst for this change? I mean, why now? Outside of all the positives you're just saying, what was the impetus for this change? And I'll just start there.
I think as you've probably observed over the years, MLS has been very measured in its change. That's been by design. That's something that the league has strived. So we have come so far in our 30 years. Can you imagine looking at the other leagues after 30 years? MLS has, in its rise to what we are today, has grown fast in 30 years, but we've done it in a measured approach. And I think this is something that's been officially on the radar for the last couple of years. I would argue that World Cup coming to North America in 2026 certainly was one of the catalysts for the conversation. But this is one of those situations where if it's a good idea, no matter how difficult that decision is, no matter how much change that represents, a good idea should be fully studied and taken across the finish line if that study shows that it's executable, and I think that's where we're at.
Quick follow-up. Was this in any way pushed by your broadcast partner? Do they want you lined up particularly with the global soccer?
Well, I think what you'll find is that having a period in May where you're activating your playoffs is viewed as more optimized for your rights holder. So yes, I think that's one of the conclusions that led to it's part of the decision-making set. Who's next? Yeah.
Let me just get this set real quick. So ever since this news came out, what has been the reaction that you've gotten, be it from players, coaches, or fans?
I think the reaction has been overwhelmingly positive. I think you guys probably have seen that nationwide or league-wide. And in the case of Austin, I think sentiment has been extremely positive. You know, for us, I talked about 91% continuity in terms of regular season and playoff dates will be similar in the new structure. You know, that remaining 9%, for us here in Austin, what that likely means is we're going to be playing fewer games in 100-degree nights and slightly more games in 70-degree days. And I think that's one thing that I would expect, you know, from a schedule structure change. I'd expect us to have a few more day games in those November, you know, early December, sort of mid-February timetables. I'd expect us to have a handful more day matches. And, you know, I think this is one where, you know, we've taken a look at, you know, Austin weather, obviously, ever since the team was created. You know, from a weather point of view, you know, last December 21st, at DKR, you know, the UT Clemson game, it was 73 degrees, and that's was it 63 degrees? Sorry, 63 degrees on that December 21st date. And then as it relates to, you know, February, Austin Marathon has been running in February, mid-February, and for the last 10 years, 7 of the 10 dates have been 70 or 80 degrees. 3 of them have been 50 or 60 degrees. So from a weather point of view, it's certainly something that we think is beneficial and manageable. So to answer your question, the reaction in Austin has been quite positive, but I think league-wide it's been overwhelmingly positive as well.
What are maybe some of the obvious and maybe even some of the not so obvious hurdles that you see, you know, with this coming schedule change, particularly in that first year, you know, whenever it's going to be happening?
Well, for us, we have to manage through, you know, the concept of multi-year contracts. So we have sponsorship relationships, ticketing relationships that have multi agreement. That's something that needs to be managed through, and that will be the same case for all the other clubs as well. And then from player contracts, and this is something where the league is still working with the Players Association on exactly how this will come to life. So there's a few things that are still being structured with the Players Association, but player contracts are going to need to be addressed in the same way. So for the purposes of us, you know, like the most material thing is we just need to be ready for change, and you know, it's almost as simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah. So with this new schedule, during the winter break, a break can often affect the performance in which the team started. Does this open the door for maybe a preseason-like type of games, so that you don't lose the form of the team?
So he's referring to the winter break, and I'm glad you brought that up, Alex, because I didn't mention it. So when we flip over to the summer to spring calendar, you know, we're going to have our regular season. We'll start in late July. It'll go all the way through the end of April, and then playoffs will happen in May, and an MLS Cup winner will be crowned at the end of May. What I didn't mention is that there will be a winter break that'll take place from, let's call it mid-December all the way through earlier mid-February. And to answer your question, I think that's all being discussed. You know, today that does fall kind of where our preseason falls today. And so we've historically, well, I should say the last couple of years, we've made trips out to Palm Springs to play out in Coachella. And I think what you're trying to drive at, will the league do something that's more uniform for all the teams? I don't know the answer to that question. I think it's going to be a discussion, and I wouldn't be surprised if a few teams want to look at efficiencies that can be generated by doing something more uniform, but it's nothing that is in cement.
And talking about this little mini tournament that is going to take place between the transition of 2026 and 2027, how is the merchandise or the release of jerseys, for instance, going to be affected?
I'm going to correct you on that because it's not a mini tournament. It's a full season. So we'll have the 2027 season, which will be 14 games. It'll be 7 home dates. It'll be high impact with high intensity and highly consequential outcomes. Champions League will be formed based off of those results from that 2027 season. US Open Cup qualification and Leagues Cup qualification, and of course a MLS Cup winner will be crowned. So that's the 2027 season, which will be the 14 regular season games. Then there's the 27-28 season is what will start with the new schedule. I think your question was around merchandise, and this is where I don't get ahead of Adidas and MLS on their announcements.
On that season, that 2027 tournament that is going to give out a cup.
Season.
The 2027 season. Speaking on that, what can the season ticket holders expect from that year? What kind of packages or what kind of pricing is going to be kind of sent out to them?
We'll address that as we normally do. So we normally, about 9 to 10 months ahead of the next season starting, we communicate with our season ticket members, and I would expect us to do something in a similar, maybe even provide ourselves with a longer runway with more advanced communication. So we're gonna have to have a little bit of patience, but we've historically provided insights for the next season about 9 to 10 months ahead of time. So we're a few months away from that period. But what I can say, and something maybe just to sort of look at this a little differently, is that as I mentioned, that 2027 season will have 14 games, 7 home, 7 away. So those 7 regular season home games in 27 will be combined with what happens in calendar year 27 in the 27-28 season. And I would imagine that what will happen is that we will have 10 home dates in that 27-28 season in the year 27. So that's 17 home games in calendar year 27, which would be consistent with everything else that you've seen in the last 5 years. So I think as it relates to continuity, one of the elements of continuity is that I think we'll have 17 home games played in calendar year 27. 7 will be in the 27 season and 10 would be in the 27-28 season.
And then with all this change, what do you anticipate being the hardest issue to solve from your point of view in all this?
As I mentioned, we've got a handful of contract elements. So talking for the business here in Austin, the business here in Austin is we have to manage through multi-year agreements, whether they're sponsorship relationships or ticketing arrangements that require a discussion around what happens in the midst of this change. So that's the short answer. Now, we do have to manage through what it's like to manage grass in mid-December in a way maybe we haven't previously. Now, we've had games here early on, we've had games in December before, and we have had no difficulty with our turf management, but those are things that we're gonna have to have an open eye to if there needs to be any modifications. But in Austin, this is, a little bit more of a manageable transformation, and one that I'm quite confident we'll be able to manage.
Hey, I apologize if I may have missed this in the last couple of days. Has the Players Association commented on the fact that in 2027 they may be just playing the whole year?
I don't know what the Players Association has commented on. Colby, I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
But the Players
Is that
Association,
a concern at all?
the Players Association, and this is where I don't get over my skis, but the Players Association and MLS have been talking.
Okay. And then is there any concern about losing you probably have 10 to 12,000 hardcore fans who will show up, whether it's 120 or 30. Is there any concern about the casual fan like losing them at all for games in late November, early December, late February when weather's iffy, and the fact that you're gonna have like I mean, I know this isn't this is done by the league, but like you're gonna have a 7-week break, and for the casual fan, that may seem kind of odd.
There might be some things that are different than what happens in other North American sports, but I do think that in other North American sports, there's a history of people showing up to events in colder weather. And again, I point back to, December 21st of last year when Clemson played UT at DKR, it was warm weather. And so in that case, there are going to be anomalies, but I think there's a pretty decent history of Austin having comfortable weather in the months where we may be playing home games that you haven't seen today during our regular season. And I think this is something that's a strength here in Austin and something that is hopefully comforting to Austin fans. That's why I think this is overwhelmingly beneficial for Austin FC fans.
Could you just talk about how important it is to get Apple TV, where folks don't have to buy the extra premium channel? And is that going to do more of what you guys thought would happen when you did sign with Apple TV?
Well, I think the great aspect is that it does arguably increase the potential viewership audience. So while Apple will have to release exactly how many subscribers they have on Apple TV, I can tell you that it will be substantially larger than that of the MLS Season Pass universe. And there's been games that have been on Apple TV over the years that are in front of that paywall, so to speak. But I think this is an enormous opportunity for us to grow our audience because we will have a much larger audience potential inside of the Apple TV platform. And I will say, I can't speak to what pricing looks like on the go forward, but I know, after, studying this a little bit, right now, Apple, if you were to buy it on a month-to-month basis, Apple TV is $12.99 currently if you're going on month to month. And if you were to buy MLS Season Pass on a month to month, it's $14.99. So, there is a reduction, arguably, if those prices stick, and I can't speak to what prices look like in the future, but there is a reduction in your investment. And you get MLS, you get F1, you get MLB, and you get all the Ted Lasso, Severance, Morning Show. Who else likes stuff on Apple? Ryan's a big For All Mankind guy. True statement. Any other questions? Oh, Jim has his hand up.
I got the mic, Jim. I got the mic. I'm just curious. Have you talked to Nico at all about the change and his thoughts at all?
I have not talked to Nico since last Thursday. No, I have not since Thursday.
Kind of a left field question a little bit, but covering F1, their switch to Apple was pretty big news in terms of the sports broadcast rights. Any research on the possibility of like crossover fans there, just because they're just getting more eyeballs on their sports product on the weekends and that sort of thing?
I don't have that research insight, but I think the general viewpoint from MLS perspective is that is a great addition to the Apple family, and it will help, again, increase viewership on the Apple TV platform. And so arguably there are ways for us to cross promote and hopefully grow our audience, but I don't know exact research. It's a great question.
Along those same lines, is there talk about maybe expanding the schedule days-wise? Because it feels like the majority of the games are always all Saturday and then maybe one Sunday, two Sunday. Has there been any consideration about moving any of that part of the schedule?
I think because we favor weekend play, I think what you'll probably see in the future is, again, a strong commitment to Saturday matches. Sunday matches would be a little less, but there would be focal points for, let's say, Sunday night soccer matches, which have great audience growth for us as a league. And given the way that load management has to work in soccer, just what the sport does to the body, we have to have space between matches, which then creates midweek games, and we have other competitions that we play in, which is one of the most amazing parts of our sport, is all of the multiple competitions that we can compete in. But it does require us to space games out a little differently. So the Saturday, Sunday plus Wednesday fixture rhythm is probably going to be here to stay for a bit.
I didn't know if there was like a Friday night audience that thought the same way Sunday nights kind of expanded. Maybe there's a Friday.
You know, MLS has had a Friday night odd game here and there. I think, have we ever played a Friday night regular season game here? Does anybody remember?
Leagues Cup against Pumas.
Once, yeah. I knew there was a year where we played all 7 days of the week, but I wasn't sure which. It was 22. We played all 7 days of the week, but I can't remember which was home and which was away. But in any event, quick answer is I don't see that being the case.
So in term, you touched on this a little bit about how players are excited, or maybe if you had any talk with Rodo in terms of both business and building the team, roster building, how this schedule change challenges the part of getting revenue and getting a better team by aligning with a European calendar.
I think just generally speaking across the league, there is a viewpoint that this helps you optimize your roster. Again, if most of the available players in the world are having their seasons end in May and they're available June and beyond, it makes sense that we'd want to have those players available in our, let's call it, in our shopping list, and have them available for the full season as opposed to half the season. And that's one of the great benefits. And again, it's also one of the great benefits as a fan, is you're going to get this new player on your team for the entire year, as opposed to what could be a half year. And by the way, I say half year, it's usually almost always inevitably turns out to be about 10 games. So it's almost less than a third of the year. So I think that's one of the benefits. But to your point, there's an argument to be made that if you're going to be buying players more efficiently, you're also going to be selling players more efficiently. There's more sellers, just like there are more buyers in the summer window. So arguably, it does put us in position to, again, this is the conversation about being aligned with the global game, certainly being aligned with the top 5 leagues in the world. This is what this allows you to do.
And when thinking about competitions like Leagues Cup, like CONCACAF Champions Cup, how are they going to be tweaked a little bit to be able to fit in this calendar as well?
So another one where I can't get ahead of myself and speak for CONCACAF. I don't think I can ever speak for CONCACAF. But Jim would want me to. I think from a Leagues Cup perspective, what we'll find out, first of all, I'm highly confident that Austin FC will play in Leagues Cup in 2026. That's not been officially out there, but I'm highly confident we'll be playing in 2026 Leagues Cup. I'm not certain as to whether or not there will be change to the Leagues Cup schedule in 27 and beyond, but I wouldn't be surprised if it stays a kind of a July, August tournament, but that's something that the league's going to have to determine over time. I think, as you guys have seen, we have to be flexible as we evolve, and we certainly make changes from time to time. But I think that's one where maybe Leagues Cup's here to stay, and I think Leagues Cup may have a home in that late July, August period as well, but subject to change, and that's up to the league.
Do you anticipate any weather-related scheduling quirks that might force a warmer weather team like Austin to do extended stretches of games on the road in colder markets that might not have been ready to host home games in that sort of mid-February or like early December type period?
The best way I can answer that is, right now, what you've seen over the years, with the exception of 2021 when the stadium wasn't ready, is that the league tries to have the first weekend of the season happen in warm weather markets, including the first weekend of the season here in Austin. And I would expect games in February to happen in, let's say that first window in mid-February to happen again in Austin. That seems logical, as it will in Dallas, as it will in San Diego, Los Angeles, and other warm weather locations. Those are the, that's relatively consistent though. And again, I'll go back, 91% of the dates that have been used for regular season and playoff games will remain consistent. So there's a significant amount of continuity in the way these schedules are built. But I think there are going to be, rightfully so, there are going to be accommodations where if a market has a cold weather climate, that they maybe have fewer games in early December and mid-December than they would in, let's say, March. Or I should have said in September.
Could that pose a disadvantage to a team like Austin that has weather to receive away teams pretty much year-round, but might be forced to play some pretty significant games on the road as they backload some of those away games in markets such as Minnesota or Seattle?
I think what I've learned, and I've been in this for 11 years, and here in Austin for our first 5 seasons, what I've learned is that as much as any market thinks that their climate and their home stadium is a sure thing home field advantage, I'm not so sure I know that anything is a sure thing home field advantage.
You'd like to be in Minnesota or Chicago in February?
I look forward to playing our first ever game in Chicago. I do. I'm a Chicagoan. They'll have a new stadium. Maybe they're going to built in heated seats. I don't know that. Don't quote me on that.
Was there any pushback from the northern ownerships groups that you know about? And you may not even be able to
Yeah,
answer
those are ownership discussions.
Any other questions, Joe? Andy, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good showing. Good questions. Thanks, gang.
Good answers.